Hello everyone and welcome back to Dreadline Stories. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. I've never been the type to believe in the paranormal. Ghost stories were something you told kids at sleepovers to freak them out, nothing more. Even when weird things happened, I always chalked it up to coincidence, stress, maybe an overactive imagination. That changed 3 months ago when I moved into a crumbling apartment building downtown. Rent was dirt cheap, which should have been the first red flag. I told myself it was historic, that the creaky floors and stained hallways had character. But honestly, it was just old and smelled faintly of mold no matter how many candles I burned. Still, I was determined to make it work. I'd just gotten out of a messy breakup, my savings were thin, and all I wanted was a place to start over. My little slice of independence. For a while, it was fine. I'd come home from work, microwave a sad dinner, and crash on the couch with whatever series I was binging. Nights were quiet, almost too quiet. The walls were thick, and I rarely heard anything from my neighbors, except the guy in 5B. I didn't actually meet him for the first couple of weeks, but I'd hear things. Footsteps pacing back and forth, sometimes for hours, low murmurs, like he was talking to himself. Once or twice, I could have sworn I heard him laughing, this dry, brittle cackle that raised goosebumps on my arms, even through the wall. It didn't help that his door was directly across from mine. Whenever I stepped into the hall, I found myself glancing at it, half expecting it to swing open. The paint was peeling, the number 5B barely clinging on. Something about that door always seemed off, like it was holding its breath. One night, I was heading back from the laundry room in the basement when I finally ran into him. I nearly dropped my basket when I saw someone standing at the end of the hall, just outside my door. He was tall, painfully thin, wearing clothes that looked about 2 decades out of style. His hair was greasy, hanging in stringy clumps around a gaunt face, but it was his eyes that got me, wide, unblinking, almost hungry. He smiled when he saw me. It wasn't reassuring. "You're new here," he rasped. His voice sounded like he hadn't used it in years. Yeah, just moved in, across from you, I guess," I stammered. "Good. It's nice to have fresh faces in the building." Then he leaned a little closer, lowering his voice. "Just don't listen if someone knocks at night, even if they say your name." I tried to laugh it off, but it came out weak. "That a joke?" His grin widened. "No." Then he slipped into 5B and shut the door without another word. That night, I lay awake far longer than I wanted to admit. Every little creak of the old building made my pulse jump, but nothing happened. And by morning, I'd convinced myself he was just a weirdo. Every building has at least one. The days slipped by. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. I almost forgot about the man in 5B until I started hearing the knocking. It was always faint at first. Just 3 slow raps somewhere down the hall. I'd freeze, waiting, but it never came to my door until it did. I was dozing on the couch when a sharp knock, knock, knock jolted me upright. I held my breath. Then came a voice. "Hey, can you open up? It's me." It sounded almost familiar, like a coworker I couldn't quite place. I crept to the door and pressed my eye to the peephole. No one was there. "Come on," it called again, softer now, almost pleading. "Please, it's cold out here." A chill ran through me. I backed away, remembering exactly what the neighbor had said. "Don't listen. Don't open." The knocking stopped. The next morning I tried to talk to him. Knocked on 5B, hoping to laugh it off, maybe get some explanation. No answer. I waited, ear to the door, but the apartment was silent. I did that for 3 days straight. Nothing. On the 4th day, I finally cornered the building manager in the lobby. Hey, can I ask about the guy in 5B? Tall, kinda creepy. I've been trying to catch him. The manager gave me a puzzled look. 5B's empty. What? No one's rented that unit for months. Guy who had it before, well, let's just say it didn't end pretty. Been trying to get the place cleaned up to list again. My mouth went dry. But I've seen him. Talked to him. She just shrugged. You sure you didn't dream it? This place does things to people. Old buildings, old air, plays tricks. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the TV on for background noise, lights burning in every room. Around 2 a.m., the knocking came again. Closer this time. Knock, 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 right against my door. I held my breath. Then it spoke, in that same papery voice. Why didn't you open up before? It's so lonely out here. Something scraped along the outside of the door, nails or fingers. Please, let me in. I sat there until dawn, muscles locked, ears straining. When I finally peeked out the peephole at sunrise, the hallway was empty. But etched into the wood of my door were 5 long gouges trailing down from the handle like something had been trying to claw its way inside. I moved out 2 days later, packed everything I owned in a single night, and left before the sun could set. I didn't care about the lease or the deposit. When I handed over my keys, the manager barely looked surprised. Sometimes I still hear it though. Even now, staying with a friend across town, I'll wake to faint knocking on the bedroom door or hear someone whispering my name from the closet. Maybe it followed me. Maybe it was never about apartment 5B at all. If you ever find yourself living somewhere old, somewhere with too many shadows and stories in its walls, and you hear someone knock at night, softly calling your name, don't answer. Because once you open that door, I don't think you ever truly close it again. I thought putting distance between myself and that apartment would save me. That all it took to end the nightmare was fresh walls and new locks. But the truth is, once something knows your name, really knows it, there's nowhere you can run. The first few nights at my friend's place, I actually slept. The nightmares eased up. I told myself it had all been stress and paranoia, that the deep scratches in my old apartment door were just, I don't know, some kind of damage I hadn't noticed before. That's what I wanted to believe. But one night, maybe a week in, I was jolted awake by a sudden coldness. Not like the air conditioning kicking on. This was different. It felt deliberate, almost like someone had pressed an ice pack against the back of my neck. And then I heard it. Why did you leave me behind? It was right there, next to the bed, so close I could almost feel its breath. I didn't dare move. I lay frozen, eyes squeezed shut, telling myself over and over that I was dreaming. That if I didn't look, it couldn't really be there. But it laughed, a hollow, brittle sound, and the mattress dipped like someone was sitting down beside me. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Hours, maybe. Eventually, the weight lifted, the room warmed. When I opened my eyes, I was alone again. But from then on, the knocking started. Not just at night. Sometimes I'd be in the shower and hear 3 slow raps on the bathroom door, or making coffee in the morning and hear it coming from the pantry. Always 3 knocks, always followed by my name, whispered in that voice that sounded so dry, like old leaves scraping together. My friend thought I was losing it. I can't blame him. He'd come home to find me standing in the middle of the living room, clutching a kitchen knife, tears running down my face because I'd heard it laughing behind the couch. More than once, he gently suggested I see someone, and maybe I should have. But deep down, I was terrified that telling anyone else would somehow spread it to them, like acknowledging it out loud would give it more power, make it grow. So I stayed quiet. I tried to ignore the knocks, tried to ignore the voice that sometimes hissed my name from the closet in the middle of the night, tried to ignore the way shadows would pool in the corners of the room, darker than they should have been, twisting like they were trying to take shape. Then, last week, it changed. I woke up to find the bedroom door open, not cracked, wide open when I was certain I'd closed it. Standing in the doorway was something tall and impossibly thin. I couldn't make out a face, just the shape of it, darker than the dark, watching me. My throat locked up. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. I just lay there, heart hammering so violently I thought I might pass out. Then it stepped forward, slow and deliberate, until it was standing right at the edge of the bed. It leaned down close, so close I could finally see where its face should have been, just empty, shifting darkness, and whispered, "You opened the door once. That's all I needed." And then it was gone. I don't know how long I sat there, shaking. When the sun finally came up, I packed my things and left without saying goodbye. I didn't want to explain, didn't want to risk it attaching to my friend the way it had to me. Now I'm driving. I've been driving for hours, just trying to put distance between me and whatever this is. I stop only for gas, avoid motels, avoid people. I don't want it finding anyone else. But every time I think I've gone far enough, I'll hear it. 3 soft knocks on the car window while I'm parked at some desolate rest stop, or a voice calling from the edge of the woods, asking why I'm trying to leave again. I don't think there's a way out of this. Not really. Because once you open that door, even by accident, it never truly closes. And if you ever hear knocking in the night, followed by someone softly whispering your name, please, don't do what I did. I've been driving for 3 days now. I sleep in the driver's seat with the doors locked, but even then, I never feel safe. I don't dare stay in one place for long. Every couple of hours, I jolt awake to a tap on the windshield or catch a glimpse of something standing under a street lamp, watching. Sometimes I think I see it sitting in the passenger seat when I come to after dozing off. Just a silhouette, impossibly thin, head cocked like it's studying me, learning me. But when I blink, it's gone. I tried calling my sister last night. I was parked on the shoulder of some empty state highway, desperate to hear a familiar voice. The call connected, but all I heard was static at first. Then, through the crackle, came 3 soft knocks, right through the phone speaker. "Hello?" I whispered. There was a pause, and then, unmistakably, my own voice answered. "I'm already inside." The line went dead. I threw the phone out the window and drove off so fast I nearly ditched the car. It's getting bolder. Last night, I stopped at a tiny roadside diner, figured maybe being around people, even strangers, would keep it at bay. I sat at the counter, hands shaking too hard to hold my coffee. The waitress was asking if I was okay when her expression changed, like she was seeing something over my shoulder. I turned. No one was there. But when I looked back at her, her eyes were wide, mouth working like she was trying to speak, but nothing came out. Then suddenly, her nose started to bleed. A thin line of red trickled down her upper lip. She clapped a hand over it and rushed away without another word. I left cash on the counter and ran out. When I got back to my car, the windshield was covered in long, dark smears, like something had dragged clawed hands across it over and over. Now I'm parked in an empty lot behind an abandoned gas station. I thought if I wrote all this down, if I recorded it somehow, it might weaken it, like confessing might drain some of its power. But it's been standing outside the car for hours now. I can't see it clearly, just the outline, tall and thin, shifting around the edges of the headlights. Every so often it taps on the window. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Just now it leaned close enough that the driver's side glass frosted over. I swear I saw the outline of a face in the condensation. No eyes, no mouth, just void. It whispered something I couldn't quite hear. I turned the key in the ignition, desperate to start the car and get away again. But it won't start. And when I look down, I see long, thin handprints pressed into the fogged interior of the windshield, from the inside. I don't know how long I have left. My battery's nearly dead, and the temperature's dropping fast. I keep telling myself that if I just sit still, maybe it'll lose interest. Maybe it'll move on to someone else. But deep down, I know better. Because every time I start to drift off, I hear it settle into the passenger seat beside me. Feel the car shift under its weight. Smell that faint odor of damp earth and rot. And when I close my eyes, it leans close and whispers, "Thank you for letting me in." I've always believed moving was a kind of rebirth, a way to shed your skin, start again somewhere clean. When my wife and I bought this old colonial house on the outskirts of rural Pennsylvania, it felt like the answer to everything. City life had been bleeding us dry. Bills, crowds, that constant hum of engines and voices that seeps under your skin until you can't remember what real quiet sounds like. Out here, it was different. We had 4 acres of land, a rickety fence, a small creek that bordered a dense stretch of forest. It was peaceful, or at least it was supposed to be. The house itself was charming in that worn-down way old homes are. Wide porch, crooked shutters, hand-carved banisters smoothed by decades of palms. But it was the backyard that sold me. The trees stretched forever. Sometimes mist would gather low over the grass at dawn, turning it into a silver ocean. I'd stand on the porch with my coffee and watch it drift through the trunks like ghostly figures. Beautiful, haunting. The first month was a dream. We spent our days painting walls, picking out new furniture, letting the dog roam through the yard. At night, we'd light a fire and listen to the crackle and pop of wood, grateful to have finally escaped the choking press of apartment walls. Then came the noises. At first, it was small things. A thud against the side of the house, branches snapping. The dog, Rex, would bristle and growl at the dark tree line, tail rigid. I figured it was raccoons, maybe a fox. One night, though, I woke to the sound of something scratching against the back door. Slow, deliberate. Not claws, but like someone running their fingernails down the wood. I grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs, heart stuttering. When I flipped on the porch light and swung the door open, there was nothing, just the wind stirring leaves. But the scratches were there, long, shallow grooves in the paint, right at chest height. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't want to spook her. Besides, the logical part of my brain insisted it had to be an animal, even if the marks looked more like fingers than claws. About 2 weeks later, I decided to explore the woods. I grew up near forests, spent half my childhood climbing trees, building forts. I thought maybe if I got familiar with it, it'd stop feeling so ominous. So I strapped on my boots, whistled for Rex, and set off. It was quiet. Too quiet. No birdsong, no rustle of squirrels, just the creak of old trees and my own footsteps. About 100 yards in, I found something odd, an old stone well, half collapsed, choked with moss and vines. The stones were weathered, some cracked clean through, and there were strange symbols carved into them. Not letters, not anything I recognized. Rex wouldn't go near it. He whined and tugged at the leash until I relented. That night, I dreamed I was standing at the well. It was pitch black inside, but I could hear something moving, shifting, breathing. Then a voice floated up, soft and coaxing, calling my name in a sing-song whisper. When I woke, my mouth tasted like dirt. Things got worse. The scratching at the door became knocking. 3 slow, heavy raps, always around 3 a.m. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps circling the house. Once, I woke to find every window on the ground floor wide open, curtains billowing in the cold. My wife started noticing too. She'd find muddy prints on the porch. She swore she heard someone humming outside our bedroom window. We installed cameras, cheap motion sensors from the hardware store, but they never picked up anything. Just static and the occasional flicker of movement that was gone before you could rewind and really see it. Rex grew skittish, refusing to go out at night. He'd stand by the door, head low, tail tucked, letting out this low, miserable whine that made my skin crawl. About a month after finding the well, I came home late from a supply run. My wife was visiting her sister for the weekend, so it was just me and Rex. As I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was already on. I didn't remember leaving it that way. My stomach sank. I thought maybe we'd been robbed. I stepped inside, heart hammering. The house was silent, dark except for that porch glow spilling in through the front windows. Everything looked normal, but when I reached the kitchen, I stopped dead. On the table was a small pile of stones, wet stones, slick with dark moss, arranged in a circle. In the center was a dead bird, neck twisted, eyes wide open. My legs nearly gave out. I staggered back, trying to breathe. That was when I noticed the mud on the floor. Footprints, bare human footprints leading from the back door, through the kitchen, and stopping right in front of me. I ran. I grabbed Rex and drove into town. Didn't stop until I was parked under a buzzing gas station light, hands shaking so bad I could barely dial my wife. I didn't go back until morning. We called the sheriff. He was polite enough, but I could tell he thought we were overreacting. Probably some kids messing around, he said. Old house like that, easy target for pranks. But he didn't have an answer for why there were no tracks leading out of the kitchen, only in. That night, we stayed at a motel. My wife tried to be strong, but I saw her clutching the sheets, wide awake long after midnight. I didn't sleep at all. Eventually we went back. What else could we do? It was our home. We couldn't afford to abandon it. I patched up the scratches, scrubbed away the muddy prints, tried to pretend everything was normal. For a while, it almost worked. Until 2 nights ago. I woke around 2:30 a.m., throat dry, craving water. As I walked past the living room, I froze. The front door was ajar, just a sliver, enough to see the porch. And on the porch stood a figure, tall, thin, draped in what looked like wet, rotting cloth. Its head was bent, long hair hanging forward in slimy ropes. Slowly, it lifted its face. The skin was gray, split and weeping dark fluid, and its mouth, God, its mouth stretched far too wide, curling up at the corners in a grin that split its cheeks. I must have made a sound because its head twitched. Then it stepped forward. I slammed the door and locked it, bracing my weight against the wood. My heart roared in my ears. I could hear it breathing on the other side, a slow, rattling draw like air through broken reeds, and then it whispered right against the door. Down by the well, waiting. I don't know how long I stood there, knees locked, body shaking. When I finally opened the door, it was gone. Just the empty porch and the dark woods beyond. I'm writing this now from a hotel in town. We left that morning with nothing but a few suitcases. The house is still there, probably watching, waiting. Sometimes late at night, I wake from dreams of standing at the well again, of peering over the crumbling edge into the darkness, and I hear something whispering up at me using my own voice. We're selling the property, cheap, no questions asked. If you're reading this and thinking it's all just a story, just folklore, I pray you're right. But if you ever find yourself driving through Pennsylvania and you pass an old colonial house with peeling blue paint, sitting at the edge of a vast silent forest, keep driving, because I don't think the woods behind that house ever let go of anything that finds its way in. Because I don't think the woods behind that house ever let go of anything that finds its way in. I thought leaving would be enough, that once we put miles between ourselves and that place, it would lose whatever hold it had over us. But it turns out distance doesn't mean a thing to something that's already under your skin. The nightmares got worse, almost ritual. Every night the same. I'm standing at the edge of the forest, dew soaking my shoes, and I can see the house through the trees. The windows glow faintly as if lit by candles. A voice calls my name from inside, soft and coaxing, and despite everything, I start walking toward it. When I get close, the door always swings open on its own, groaning like it hurts to move. The interior is wrong, stretching on forever, rooms leading into rooms that can't possibly fit inside those walls. And at the center of it all, the well sits there, right in the living room, stones slick with dark moss, breathing. I always wake up when something starts to climb out. 2 weeks after we checked into this motel, I got a call from the realtor. They'd found a buyer, sight unseen, someone from out of state. It should have felt like relief, but instead it settled in my stomach like a rock. "Are you sure?" I asked, voice low, even though my wife was in the shower and couldn't hear. "I mean, did you tell them how old the house is? How much it needs fixing up?" "They didn't care," she said cheerily. "Cash offer, closing next week. You're free." I thanked her and hung up, then just sat there, phone limp in my hand. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? Some things want to be found. Some places, they call out. And whoever was buying our house, well, they'd answered. The last night before the papers were finalized, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the stained carpet, heart racing for no good reason. Then, from the cracked open bathroom door, I heard water running, like someone had turned on the tap. But my wife wasn't in there. I'd watched her fall asleep on the other side of the bed, face pressed to the pillow. I stood, every nerve screaming not to. Walked to the door and pushed it wider. Inside, the sink was full. Water so black it might have been ink. Floating on the surface were dead leaves, tiny white worms writhing between them. And deep beneath, almost out of sight, I thought I saw stones. Familiar stones, with those same shallow carvings, stacked in a perfect circle. I slammed the door and pressed my back to it, trying to slow my breathing. When I dared open it again, the sink was empty, dry. The next morning, we signed everything, handed over the deed, accepted the check, smiled like any happy couple moving on to brighter things. I told myself it was over. That night, we drove 3 hours to my sister's house to stay for a while, somewhere crowded, somewhere safe. Or so I hoped. I fell asleep on her couch, exhaustion finally claiming me. And for the first time, the dream changed. I wasn't outside the forest anymore. I was in the house again, yes, but it was full of people, a family I didn't know. They laughed, moving boxes in, decorating, making plans. Their little girl ran from room to room, giggling. She stopped in the living room, right where the well would be, looked at me, straight at me, like she could see through the dream, and she smiled. Then she opened her mouth and out spilled that same wet, rattling voice I'd heard on my porch. "Thank you for bringing us home." I woke with a scream that brought my wife and sister running. I tried to explain, but the words stuck, half-formed, strangled by guilt. Because deep down, I knew. That house didn't want us forever. It just needed someone new, and I'd helped it find them. I lie awake most nights now, wondering how long before they figure it out, how long before the scratches start on their doors, the voices start in their walls, how long before that little girl stands at the edge of the well, peering down into darkness, listening to something that whispers back. Sometimes I almost pick up the phone, almost try to warn them, but then I think of that dream, of her face, of her gratitude, and I stay silent. Because the truth is, some places aren't meant to stay empty. Some places wait, and wait, until you bring them what they're hungry for. I just hope, wherever we go next, the woods aren't waiting for us too. I never used to believe in omens, not until last fall, when a simple road trip nearly cost me my sanity, if not my life. It started when I agreed to help out my cousin by driving his old car from Boston to a small town outside Albany. The car needed repairs he couldn't handle locally, and I had the free time. It seemed like an easy enough favor. A little solo time on the road actually sounded kind of nice. Around dusk, somewhere near the Massachusetts-New York border, my GPS rerouted me. The calm, robotic voice chirped, "Faster route found. Save 17 minutes. Harmless, right?" I took the turn without a second thought. Almost immediately, the smooth highway dropped away, replaced by a cracked two-lane road snaking through dense woods. The trees crowded close, blocking out most of the evening sky. There were no other cars, no streetlights, just my own headlights carving tunnels of light through the dark. A few miles in, I noticed an old rusted sign half swallowed by vines. It read, Route 17. I barely registered it before it was gone in my rear view. Another hour rolled by. The forest felt endless. My phone had long since lost signal, and the radio had devolved into nothing but static. I told myself it was fine, just back roads, old America. People romanticized this kind of isolation. Then my headlights swept across something pale on the roadside. I sucked in a sharp breath. It was a girl, maybe 19, long dark hair, wearing a white dress that seemed to glow against the darkness. She was standing stone still in the ditch, staring straight ahead. I slammed on the brakes so hard my seatbelt locked. Hard hammering, I cracked the window and called out, "Hey, you okay?" She didn't respond, didn't turn, didn't even flinch. Instead, she slowly lifted one arm and pointed down the road, deeper into the forest. I blinked, and in that instant, she was gone. Not stepped into the trees, just gone. Like fog when the sun comes up. My chest was tight, my breath shallow. Every survival instinct screamed at me to drive, to get the hell out of there. I listened. I pressed the gas and sped off, tires spitting gravel behind me. About 2 miles later, the pavement turned to loose gravel, then to nothing but packed dirt. My headlights caught something massive up ahead. A fallen oak sprawled across the road, roots jutting into the air like skeletal hands. Worse yet, it wasn't fresh. Moss grew thick on the trunk. Fungus bloomed in clusters. This tree had been dead for years, so how the hell had my GPS routed me here? I put the car in reverse, ready to backtrack and find literally any other road. That's when I saw it, in the rearview mirror. Right there in my back seat was the girl. Her hair was wet, plastered to her cheeks. Her head hung low, mud streaked her bare feet, smearing dirty prints on the seat fabric. I couldn't even scream. I just sat there, paralyzed. Then she spoke. Her voice was hollow and distorted, like it was coming through a busted speaker. "Drive me home." My hands moved on their own, gripping the wheel tight enough to hurt. I dropped it into drive and eased around the fallen tree, even though there shouldn't have been room to pass. Somehow there was. The road beyond was wrong. The trees leaned in closer, their trunks twisted into shapes that reminded me of frozen bodies reaching. Shapes moved between them, too quick to see clearly. I didn't look in the mirror again. I couldn't. I kept my eyes locked dead ahead, knuckles white on the wheel. Eventually, the forest thinned, and I found myself back on a paved road. The same rusted sign passed me again, Route 17, but this time the road didn't lead anywhere familiar. It wound past dark, empty fields, past ancient barns with shattered windows that seemed to watch me. The moon hung low and red. Everything felt stretched, unnatural. Then finally lights, a gas station flickering in the distance. Civilization, salvation. I pulled in so fast I nearly took out a pump. Heart pounding, I jumped out and ran inside. I must have looked wild because the old man behind the counter flinched. "Sir, please," I gasped. I need help. I think there was someone in my car. A girl. She just disappeared." He studied me for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "Son, Route 17's been closed nearly 30 years now. Big storm in '92 washed out the bridge. Ain't no one used it since." I staggered outside to see for myself, to prove him wrong. The car sat where I'd left it, engine ticking as it cooled. The back seat was empty. No girl, no muddy footprints. But when I looked closer at the rear door, I saw them. Faint, dirty handprints, like someone had gripped the edge trying to climb in. They trailed all the way from the trunk. I finished the drive on major highways, bathed in streetlights. I don't take shortcuts anymore. I don't even trust my GPS. And on quiet nights, when the world feels just a little too still, sometimes I catch her in my rear view, her hair wet, her smile too wide, still waiting for me to drive her home. Even after I made it safely back to the main roads, something never really let me go. For weeks, life seemed normal. I drove home, parked that old car, handed my cousin the keys like none of it ever happened. He laughed about the dust and dead leaves still caught in the grill, thanked me, and that was that, or it should have been. But the nightmares started almost immediately. I'd wake in the dead of night, sweat-soaked and trembling, convinced there was mud on my sheets. I'd dream of that girl, standing by my bed this time, her hair dripping onto the carpet, eyes pale and cloudy, mouth working like she was trying to form words she'd forgotten how to say. And always, I'd see those trees from Route 17, black and skeletal, clutching at the moon. Then the real problems started. I'd walk out to my car in the morning to head to work and find streaks on the windows, long, dragging lines like someone ran dirty hands across the glass. I tried to convince myself it was just dew or pollen or kids messing around. But deep down, I knew better. Sometimes, when I was driving alone at night, my rearview mirror would tilt itself. I'd adjust it, refocus on the road, only to glance back up and find it pointed straight at the back seat again, as if it was trying to show me something. One evening, about a month later, I stopped at a traffic light on my usual route home. The street was empty, bathed in the orange glow of a lone overhead lamp. As I waited, I heard it, a faint, wet breathing behind me. I didn't want to look. Every instinct begged me not to, but of course I did. There she was, hunched forward in the middle seat, hands braced on the headrests, closer than she'd ever been. Her hair hung in clumps, face obscured, but I could hear her whisper, "Almost home." The light turned green. I hit the gas so hard I nearly ran the next red. By the time I had the courage to look again, she was gone. After that, I stopped using the car altogether, sold it off, dirt cheap. The new owner texted me 3 days later, asking if I'd ever had electrical problems because the dome light kept turning on by itself at night. I blocked the number. I didn't want to know. I thought it was over. I'd moved on, mostly, but about a week ago, I came home late from a friend's place. My street was empty, hushed, the kind of silence that feels deliberate. As I unlocked my door, my phone buzzed in my pocket, an unknown number. Thinking it might be a rideshare driver or spam, I answered without checking. On the other end, I heard it, that same hollow, crackling voice I'd heard once before. "Thank you for trying to take me home." The line went dead. When I checked my call log, there was nothing. No incoming call, no missed number. Just silence. I've started to think maybe Route 17 doesn't end once you leave it. Maybe it's more than a place on a map. Maybe it's a thin spot, a tear between here and something else that sometimes forgets to close behind you. Now every night before I sleep, I listen for dripping water, for muddy footsteps. I keep the doors locked, the lights on, but I know it doesn't matter. Because sometimes when I'm drifting off, I swear I feel her breath on my neck, still waiting, still whispering, almost home.